Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today it is time to look at another deep dive into the files by Father Gentlespie. He's basically gone through a new dev server update, and it's time to bring you the news and ideas that this dev server brings us. There was a little mini update, it seems, later on today, which also added some different things. So we're going to go through them first, because I think they will interest most people the most, but I also, as usual, want to say thank you to Father Gentlespie for putting this together for us so we can have a look. So, the first thing is in the asset viewer. This is on the dev server. You can see the HMS Belfast now has its full set to it, which is really nice, and just like it did on the dev server. And then if you have a look at the cruiser Hawkins, which we had a look at the other day, you remember how the bridge wasn't fully there, and you remember how it wasn't fully put together? Well, it looks like the Hawkins is finally here in its full HD mode, with its, of course, large guns on it, and of course its pom-poms and all of that wonderful stuff. So the full model, at least, of the Hawkins is now on the dev server, ready to go. So my guess is if we see a second dev server, this will be on pretty soon. On top of this as well, of course, you have the other the Japanese cruiser, the Sendai. If we can just have a look here, there we go. The Sendai as well has its fully done up self. So you can see it has the little hydroplane back here. Then of course it has the main guns. This actually looks like it's so well modeled, you could definitely launch this thing. And I really hope at some point we do see that functionality. Of course you couldn't launch it straight because this wonderful thing is in the way, so you'd have to give it a good turn. But at least right now, if this doesn't have that functionality, it just serves to get in the way of the guns. So that's kind of annoying. But before, the smokestacks that you see here, and also the main bridge, were definitely lacking in some form of texture, and now, well, it's fully here. So therefore, once again, just like the Hawkins, I've got a feeling that we're going to be seeing this when it comes to the second dev server pretty soon. Another thing that was also cogitated, talking to Switzerland. Switzerland brought this up last time. Last time I brought up the thoughts of John McCarthy. Switzerland is a trusted occupant on the Tech Hub, and he thought, well, with the HMS Belfast coming in as a premium, and also with the Helena coming in as a premium as well, the Sendai could also come in as a light cruiser premium. It's very similar to one of the other light cruisers that is in the Japanese tech tree, and therefore it could serve as one. Now, I think it would be the weakest out of the three, just because of its layout of its guns, but we're going to have to see if that is the case. I still like the idea of the Megami going up in, rank, and then this filling in a slot, but anything is possible at this point. Now, this is the little interesting part. So if you type in F_4 in the War Thunder CDK, or the asset view, I should say, you get the F4C, right? So this is the standard American Phantom that we're all used to. It's been in the game for at least an update. And then there's another one, the F4M FGR2. The the British F4M FGR2. So in the USA Aircraft's part of the game, there is a British Phantom just kind of sat there. And looking at its general loadout, what you have is what seems to be rockets. It also seems to have, of course, the wonderful gun pods and other stuff like that. And after having a look at the F4M FGR2, it seems to be a kind of close air support version of the Phantom, which was designed mainly for ground attack in the good old British way. But also, on top of it, it could carry sidewinders, so AIM-9s, and also Sparrows in the form of AIM-7s. So therefore, at least if we compare it to the F4C, it seems pretty comparable. So if this comes into the game as the British supersonic jets, I think I'll be as disappointed as I was when I saw the F-100D. But at least when it comes to the future, we still know that stuff like the Mirage is being worked on. We still know that stuff like the Lightning is being worked on. So even if this may be a little bit disappointing for now, if you have a think about it, you know, when it comes to ground forces, it'll be a lot more useful in there. You'll be able to use this to, you know, grind out other jets if you really feel like it. The other question is, where do you stick this in the British tech tree, if it comes to the British tech tree? Obviously, looking at it right now, it's sat in USA aircraft, so to me, that normally means it's coming to the US, but I have no idea why the US would get a British version of the Phantom. This version has British engines, Rolls-Royce ones, and also should have access to slightly different capabilities, but should be incredibly similar. The main difference, if you just look at the physical model, at least comparing the two, the F4C has this, sorry about that, whoops, the F4C has this little bit of nub on the bottom right here, whereas the F4M does not. You can see that it is just a standard cone, so should have access to radar, probably slightly different radar, and there you go, you can see the inside of the wonderful flame. So yeah, how cool is that? Another Phantom coming to the game, probably for a different tech tree, and if not, at least we're going to get a pretty cool skin on top of things. As long as it's not a premium, you know, I'm generally happy. It obviously saddened not to see something like a Lightning, but there's still time, and on top of that as well, there is always a chance that when this comes in, the Lightning comes in later, right? So let's have a look at some of the other changes that are happening. The damage model, so the damage model for what seems most things, they've added a new damage model, the Funnel 05DM, probably for new bigger ships, and a lot of main caliber and auxiliary caliber DMs as well. My guess is, as said here, it's for stuff like the heavy cruisers, just making them way more defined. The damage models themselves in ships are incredibly well made, and so is the X-ray models, and just the models themselves. If you really want to, you know, have a look at amazing models, just go and look at the Hipper, or go and look at, you know, the Pensacola once it's out. Easily the most precise and defined models in the game, and it's an absolute marvel that we have them in War Thunder. Gameplay-wise, it looks like they've added new bands for radar frequency cross-sections, so band 0 to 9, and also added a new factor to each frequency, trees non-transparency mult, which sounds like, you know, it's always going to take into account trees, which is good. The other thing as well is the Tunguska seem to also get some form of new radar as a modification, making the Tunguska a slightly better version of itself, where it gave itself thermals and also a more defined radar. Now, that was on the first dev server, and it looked very much interesting. So yeah, you can probably now grind that out too. I don't think it'll really make too much of a difference because, you know, the Tunguska already has pretty good capabilities to it. The thermals I don't think really helps at all, especially when you're talking about shooting down aircraft and things. The radar should be good enough for that. Then of course the Halloween hangar. So the Halloween hangar makes complete sense, and as Gentlespie says here, wink wink update this week. Yeah, unless they're trying to test two ideas at the same time, you got to remember that the 31st, which is Halloween, is on Thursday, so therefore we technically have about 4 days before we get ourselves, the Halloween event stuff, and my guess is it'll go over the weekend, and if they're testing these ideas at the same time, then the idea would be maybe in the next few days we have this update. I would like a second dev server just to have a look at the Swedish vehicles mainly, because I don't like the idea of having to pre-purchase stuff without being allowed to at least have a look at them, you know. The FM changes, so the Fury Mark 1, Mark 2, the Nimrods as well got completely revamped, which is interesting. There's a new file name called the Gladiator I8A. The Hunter F9 received 30 kgf more thrust, and that is actually something I do want to bring up because We actually had clarification from Esmin on the forums as well. So what he said with the Hunter, so you see how we have the Hunter F9 here and the FGA doesn't exist, at least in the files right now. So his reasoning for it is that every premium has this kind of base model which they work off of. So if you have a look at any premium in the game, such as the FJ9, its basis is the F9, which you see here. And that's why, at least for me, I was confused why it was holding SRAMs, because the F6 Hunter is the only Hunter which ever, ever even trialed SRAMs when it came down to it. So seeing it in game like this didn't really make a lot of sense. But yeah, so it's probably not going to come to the game, the F9, but it is what you see here is more of a base model of the FGA. What is just weird is that there doesn't seem to be, an FGA in the files, just an F9. So hopefully at some point maybe they change the file name so it makes a little bit more sense. The Saab J29D has a huge FM change. Thrust decreased from 2170 to 2070, slightly increased maximum max speed, nerfed base thrust coefficient on every altitude, and buffed afterburner thrust coefficient on every altitude, and finally changed landing gear brakes friction. So they're pretty much just changing a bunch of stuff about it. And also the Saab J29D, it's received its new presets, 14 150mm rockets. That Saab is going to carry so many large rockets on these wonderful hardpoints under the wings. Hopefully, hopefully it goes okay with it. And let's just have a look at the cockpit as well, because it now has a HD cockpit that we can have a look at. So this is what it generally looks like. Sorry about the sun, but you can see inside you've got, of course, the lever and everything else like that. This is the aiming reticle, which looks very swanky. And as I said, I hope we get a dev server before the release comes out so we can have a test on stuff like that. The other thing is the A129, so that is the Italian helicopter countermeasure options. So they gave it the IRCM, same as the Mi-24's good stuff. The BR-20M received a new skin. Lovely. The G-Lynx and Lynx AH Mark 1 received a TV tracker sensor. Not sure what that is. Might be the MFDs. I think, as I said, I think this TV tracker thing is what I showed in the Mi-28 video, where you press F and it follows the ground vehicle around with a little square box. But I'm going to have to do more testing to see if that's the case. The KA-50 zoomed out FOV is changed from 1.5 to 3.6. That's good, so it doesn't look like it zooms in as much. The Saab 29D should have received its full loadout, so it now has 75mm rockets, 145mm rockets, 150mm rockets, and 180mm rockets. Big old rockets, which should be fun. The Swift also has a nice little addition to it. So the Swift F7, as we know, this little baby here. So it should, at least in the dev blog, they talked about, it receiving, it using fire lashes. And at least to me, it definitely seemed like they were adding the Swift F7 to be able to add in the fire lash. And that's basically what they did. If you don't know what the fire lash is, it's a very early, I wouldn't really call it a prototype, but it wasn't used extensively. It was basically just a missile, which was a very early version of a beam riding missile. So I'm really curious to see how it's going to work, because technically, it should at least function differently to a lot of other missiles in the game, but that, we'll have to see. It's one of those things. We'll have to see how that goes. The next one, the TV tracker sensors line of sight lock changed from nothing to a cone. Okay, so now it's going to be, you're going to have to be a bit more precise with it instead of just, bashing your F key and hoping that everything goes well. The ZTZ96, the armor has been fixed. Won't have more than 3,000mm of armor anymore. also has a TT icon. Now, a TT icon means a tech tree icon. So, you know, when you hover over a vehicle and it comes up with a picture, that's just what that means. So, yeah, all of these get their TT icons as well. The MD-35, the 30 Acura, and the BMP-1 DDR. The Centurion Action X also got it, and some armor changes on it as well. All Centurions and FV4005 got composite armor for the hull. Not sure what this means. Composite armor hull 0-1 damage. That is a bit odd, but we'll have to see. Unless it's talking about the extra layer of plate, which is on the Centurion Mark 10, but then it wouldn't be for all Centurions, so we're going to have to check that out on the dev server. I definitely would like to know what this really means. Yeah, so would I, because there's, you know, none of these should not have composite armor. At least in the general sense. So, yeah, the ZTZ96 had incredibly strong armor on the first dev server, but then again, it's a 9.7 vehicle, so you'd hope it would have something, you know, in its library that was useful. The Vickers, the Mark 7 also gets a tech tree icon, some slight damage model changes, and now it's got the ready rack ammo mechanic. Lovely, that's nice to see. Should have had that before. At least it was set up to have it before. The M1A1 Abrams weight has been reduced by about 1,800 kilos. The M1A2 ammo storage increased from 40 to 42. You shouldn't really be taking that many anyway. The 9P149 got a new modification. The 9P149M gives it thermal capabilities. So that is the Tunguska that they're talking about right there. It has a different dish on it. And I don't know, is it called the Tunguska in the files? Or is it just called something else? Let's see. No. Let's try the official name of the Tunguska, which is the 9P. Oops. Let's try again. 9P1. There we go. So, wait. This thing? That's not right. The 9... Oh, wait. Yes, sorry. I'm an idiot. So this thing is the 9P149. It's the Sturm S. So it now has thermal capabilities on it. So there you go. It is slightly more useful than a useless thing. Sorry, I got them confused. The BMP-3, some armor changes for the gun. Floating ability changed. Modern laser rangefinder added as a modification. Well, there you go. Now that's a hell of a lot more useful, especially when using the potato gun. Then, of course, the Tunguska. They changed some antenna locations and the damage model. Now, weapon changes. These are kind of important. The 100mm 2A70 ATGM. So this is the gun on the BMP-3. The rate of fire was nerfed from 0.1 shots per second to 0.034. From 10 seconds reload to 29.4 seconds. It's going to take you half a minute to load the ATGM. Really? Half a minute? Bloody hell. God, that's a big hit to the BMP-3. The 100mm D10-2S fire rate for their ATGM is also nerfed to 0.034. I'm pretty sure that's the gun on stuff like the T55A, but I might be wrong about that. But that sucks as well. Or it might be the one on the T62M. It's one of those. The M830A1 will no longer explode when in proximity with other shells. So that's the new Heat FS with proximity shell for the Americans. It would, if it came close to another shell, it would blow up. That's kind of funny. And new naval weapons were added. So we got some 120mm, a single, and then some 127s. I'm guessing this is mainly for the new vehicles that are coming in. A 20mm twin Orlecan mount. So that's kind of interesting. And the 152mm 6-inch recoilless. We're gonna have to have a look at those and see what ships they correspond to when it comes to the game. The 7.92 MG34 for naval changed shell type from AP ball to APIT ball. So you should have a tracer on it now. The Vickers ATGM added a new console auto-aim tracking sensitivity. Well, that sounds worrying. Whenever auto-aim is in a system, it definitely worries me. There's been lots of changes for the new Swedish 145, 180, and 75mm rockets. Well, we haven't seen them yet, so it's kind of hard to make a judgment on them. And then they added some new rockets, so some 150mm, some other 150mm. Then map changes as well. The ice ports changed, the tank grid steps, the tank grid size, and the tank map coordinates. They all went up in value, so to me that would mean it would be harder to see around the map. I mean, we'll see what a difference it makes. And the last one is change the hangar to the Halloween version with the new weather preset, so different tone mapping added. So that will be for the Halloween event. Hopefully we get, I mean, I personally don't run the Halloween hangar, just because, I'd rather just have my very boring hangar, which looks very similar to this hangar in here. So yeah, that is just me incarnate. Boring as all hell, enjoying just stuff that nobody else seems to. But anyway, the main takeaway from this is big hits to certain weapon systems, massive armor changes, and also massive updates to stuff like the Swedish things, and also this little beauty, just kind of sat here, chilling, blood spilling in the files. Hopefully, we get clarification on what this thing is when it comes to the game. Obviously, we know what it is. It's a Phantom, a British Phantom. But overall, I hope we get a second dev server, just because there is so many things which have been added, which we need to test before the update comes out, just for even not to find bugs and stuff, even though that's very important, but also so people know what they're buying when it comes to pre-orders. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Ambrosius McClellan, B. Young, Blackie, Daniel Stanton, Jay Wilt, John Ryman, Joseph Anders, Martinez, Moxie, Super Cacti, Uyans Terry, Elove Goat, and Seductive Trash Can for supporting the channel.